Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jarrell Mason, aka Jay Mason. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me right now, I have a man who's multi-hyphenated. He's a singer, actor, playwright, filmmaker, got new projects such as Good Morning Kiss, Jumbo Thoughts, and plenty of other things that we'll get into today with the one and only Mr. Carltaise Ransom. Carltaise, thank you for coming on Beyond the Album Cover, and how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm happy
Not
to
a
be here.
problem. Yeah, appreciate you coming on. I want to say big shout out to my boy Rashawn for linking us up and having you on the podcast today.
Yeah. Thank you, brother Rashawn. Really
Yes,
appreciate it. Yes.
yes, sir. So let's go ahead and hop right on to it. Where were you born, and do you have any memories of maybe your first musical purchase that you bought with your own money?
That's a great question. I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. As far as the first song I may have bought, I don't remember right offhand, but because I know I've always been into music since I was a baby practically. So I mean, it may have been something by hmm. It it may have been Michael Jackson, uh, or somebody like that, or Stevie Wonder, or even Janet Jackson. I have a lot of different musical influences, and I'm a big fan of Marvin Gaye's. He's one of my biggest influences, is Marvin Gaye. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember the exact first record that I bought. I can't remember that offhand.
Right. So you said you're born and raised in Bmore, Baltimore. Now, for those that don't know, don't put Baltimore and DMV in the same sentence because they'll correct you. Because Baltimore is its own separate world from the DMV, even though they're very close by, two totally distinct different worlds. You have Baltimore Club, then of course you had Go Go from DC with
Yeah.
EU, Trouble Funk, Backyard Band, the legendary Chuck Brown, Rare Essence. List goes on and on. So, how influential growing up so close to Go Go in DC and with Baltimore Club in Baltimore, how did that kind of help shape your identity as far as musically, if it had any impact on you at all?
Well, I can't say that the go-go what do you put the go-go realm also had a big influence on me at the time. Um, I like some house music, but I wasn't like a huge house music fan. But I do like some of it. I like a lot of different genres of music. My main influences growing up were like R&B and pop,
Mm.
stuff like that. Like I mentioned previously, which I don't know if you wanted to answer that question yet, but one of my influences was Marvin Gaye. Um, I love his voice, the different textures of his voice, because he has different textures to his voice. Like he has the smooth texture, the falsetto, the smooth natural voice of his, but he also has like a rough, gritty part of his voice as well. And I like the versatility of his voice. And also, I feel drawn to him because of some things that we have in common, dealing with in our childhoods and stuff like that. The fact that he had a tumultuous relationship with his biological father. His biological father was abusive towards him growing up, and I can identify with that because my biological father he had some issues. He was an alcoholic, and he was an abusive alcoholic towards me growing up. So I felt when I learned about Marvin Gaye and his story, I felt like drawn to him, and also because of his voice as well, a lot of his great music. And I've always also wanted to like maybe do a biopic about Marvin Gaye. That's something I would love to do.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Marvin Gaye on so many lists as far as musical influences. Was able to give you that smooth, silky falsetto, but also the rough and tough grit at the same time. He gave you music that you could dance to, whether it be on the dance floor with your lady. And he also made think with the classic album "What's Going On," which for those that do or don't know,
Oh, yeah.
Motown was very hesitant on
They
releasing
were against
because
it.
we knew Motown's bread and butter was making music that was acceptable across the board all people, and with the matter of the subject matter on the album, Barry Gordy was like, too much of a
Right.
risk.
But he didn't
But
want him to, yeah.
as we
And but
saw,
Marvin put his foot down.
yes, he did. He put
Yeah.
the foot down and it became a big hit. And of course, that influenced Stevie to want to take more creative control. And that led into the directions with Songs of the Key of Life.
That's another great album. Yes. I
Now,
actually, well, I'm sorry.
oh, I was going to ask you, was Stevie Wonder another one of your musical influences,
Yes, he
if any?
was. He was another one of my great musical influences. How can you not love Stevie Wonder? I mean, his voice, his range, you know, the just the versatility of his voice and his songwriting capabilities and everything. And what I was going to say was that years ago when I went to join this church choir, um, one of the songs that I sung to audition for them was a Stevie Wonder song. And I also sang at the time a little bit of an original gospel song that I had written, but I sung some of Stevie Wonder's Knocks Me Off My Feet back then when I auditioned to get on this choir. And I got on the choir. I'll say that.
Mhm.
They took me on the choir. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
so Stevie
definitely
Wonder, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, you definitely can't go wrong with that. Now you mentioned singing an original gospel piece along with a little bit of knocks me off my feet to get into the gospel choir. Were there any gospel musicians that influenced you in addition to Stevie and Marvin?
Gospel artists, um, people like of course, people like from the Hawkins family, Mr. Richard Smallwood with The Center of My Joy, songs like that. Also Kirk Franklin and a lot of his great music, even though Kirk Franklin doesn't sing, but he's a great writer. So I was drawn to a lot of stuff that he wrote. Of course, the Clark sisters and people like that, and now Smokey Norfolk is another great one. So there are some gospel artists that I really like. You know,
Right. And you mentioned those names like the Hawkins Singers, Clark Sisters, in addition to
Richard Smallwood.
Caravans,
Yeah,
Rance
yeah.
Allen Project, Andre
Oh
Crouch,
yeah.
Sandra Crouch. It was like the beginnings of the meshings of the secular and the saint, and it started to really cross over. And then later on in the 80s, when you heard commissioned, that a lot of people, especially in the 90s, a lot of the R&B groups like Shy, Silk, Jodeci, Boyz II Men, they will always reference commission as their
Mhm.
North Star as far as listening to them and feeling like, we could take these melodies that's very R&B-ish and
Yes.
is gospel
Hmm.
and just translate it fully to R&B. And also, how can you not forget the first family of gospel, the Winans?
Oh yes. The Winans, yes. Always. The Winans, BB, CC, Vicky, Marvin, you know, so many great ones there.
Yeah, so
You
many
know.
of them. Now, at this point, we have the influences. Was there one particular moment for you when you were cutting your teeth that gave you the motivation to say, I'm going to go at this full time, or did you do the whole moonlighting as something else in a 9 to 5 and then doing the singing on the side?
Well, I did have regular 9 to 5 jobs for a little while. And it came to a point where, I couldn't do it anymore. And I'm going to be very transparent on here. Um, I suffered a brain injury as a child. Um, I'm not going to get into how that happened, but I suffered a severe brain injury as a child. I didn't know about it because my mom didn't, tell me about it because she didn't want me to feel self-conscious about it growing up, which I would have. So I found out about it a little later on when I suffered a seizure. I used to be on a seizure medication called Dilantin, but because of this brain injury that I had, I was told by doctors that I wouldn't be able to do anything, that I wouldn't be able to achieve anything that I really wanted to do. Of course, I didn't pay that any mind. I kept going anyway. And the brain injury affects me in certain ways, but I don't let it stop me. So I have worked like little regular jobs, like I used to work security, um, like I had this nighttime shift. I hated the midnight shift, midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning. Also worked 8 to 4, but they had me on that midnight shift too. And I used to work at this little picture or like a photography business called Keystone Photography, working with their pictures and stuff like that. So I had worked other jobs too, but my passion has always been the arts. As something that I would never give up on. I was asked, recently, when did the arts speak to you? And I said, I can't remember a time when I was not ever involved in the arts. The arts has always been a part of me since childhood. Since elementary school, I was in plays, 5, 6 years old. I started singing on the church, on the school choir. And I won through a couple little music awards and stuff like that from singing on the school choir. I also started writing songs and plays when I was like 9 or 10 years old. So the arts have always been a part of me. So when people ask me when did the arts speak to you, it's just always been there. I felt like it's something that was given to me by the creator and by the ancestors, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so now when you started writing songs and doing plays, did you have any desires to want to go to a performing arts school that specializes in that so where you can get more further training in this
I
particular field?
I wanted to go to the school for the arts, but at the time I was painfully shy. I was painfully shy and I was somewhat timid, even though I did stuff in school. When it came to having an audition for people, I was very subconscious and painfully shy to like get up there and try to do that kind of thing. But as I got older, one of the things that helped me to gain more confidence is when I started going to a community college, and I took like a dance class. Also took a voice class there as well. But that's something that helped me to gain my confidence somewhat. But for a long time, I was like extremely painfully shy, and I would go into auditions like you could see me visibly shaking, right? You would see me visibly shaking because I was so nervous, and
Mhm.
but I worked through that now. Now I walk into an audition with confidence, but
Mhm.
back then, I was like really shy, um, but I had to get past that to that where I am now, so
Mhm. And
it's
you
been a
mentioned,
process.
yeah, and you mentioned one part that I think a lot of people don't really understand when you go into this profession where your work is out for everybody to see, especially with social media where everybody has an opinion,
Hmm.
and that you have to have the confidence of, I know my stuff is good, even when internally I feel opposite. And with the piece of auditioning, is you're pretty much putting your best foot forward, and then you have however many people in the room at your audition giving you validation for your work or saying
Hmm.
it's no good. And it's great to hear how you were able to overcome your shyness to now when you're able to step on stage that you can pretty much do it with confidence. And I think now a lot of especially young performers that's just getting into the business, they have more scrutiny to deal with, once again, like I stated, because of social
Yeah.
media. And with everybody's able to document, you're able to see it in real time, and everybody has an opinion to at least pre-social media. You dealt with that, but not to the big scale of having any and everybody judge your work when you're at your most vulnerable and where you're feeling the most insecure.
Yeah, I had a lot of insecurity and was very shy. Like I said, you could see me shaking when I would go into an audition. But now I go into an audition with confidence. I had an audition a couple of months ago at Morgan State University here in Baltimore because they have this thing going on where they're honoring the works of the legendary playwright Mr. August Wilson. So they got the different theaters in this town like doing his plays. And so Morgan State University is going to be doing a production of his play, Two Trains Running. And I auditioned for Two Trains Running. I walked in there, I was prepared, and I did a great job. I got a call back. And then after the call back, I was offered the role. So I'm going to be in Two Trains Running from October 22nd to November the 1st at Morgan State University, which I'm very excited about that. But back then, when I first started auditioning, it was a different story. I would be like extremely intense, very tense and nervous, right? I'm
Mm.
glad that I came through that. And for
Yeah.
anybody that's listening, that's an upcoming actor, or whatever, if they're painfully shy now, know that they can overcome that. I
Mm.
want them to know they can overcome that.
Yeah, and congratulations to you on getting Two Trains running. If you don't know August Wilson, people, look him up, Google him, Google his plays. Definitely an important playwright, and especially I think if you go to Pittsburgh, where he's from, there's something of a marker dedicated to where he lived and where, because of the area where he lived, that's where he got a lot of inspiration from all of his plays, like Two Trains Running, Jitney, Fences, and the list goes on and on of all the great plays
I
that
read Black
he's
Bottom, which is
done.
another one I want to do. I have to do the role. I just have to do that role of Levy from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Uh, of course, I was a great admirer and still am of the great late Mr. Chadwick Boseman, who I wish I had gotten the chance to meet and work with. But I have an older brother who's also an actor, and I saw him play the role of Levy a while ago, and he killed it. And when I saw my brother do it, I'm like, I got to play that role one day. So I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there that one day I'm going to be playing Levy one of these days soon,
Mhm.
in the next couple of years, hopefully.
Right. And also, who influenced you as a playwright?
As a playwright, definitely August Wilson. Some people have compared. Well, I was interviewed by a brother named Deshaun Farad a few years ago in reference to my writing and everything, and he compared me to August Wilson. August Wilson was one of my influences. Um, film, Spike Lee, John Singleton, people like that. Oscar Micheaux, who was actually the very first black playwright. I mean, black filmmaker, Oscar Micheaux. Melvin Van Peebles as well.
Mhm. Yeah, because when you mentioned those names like Melvin Van Peebles, who those that do or do not know, father of Mario Van Peebles, kicked off the black exploitation era with "Sweet Sweet Badass Song." And once Hollywood figured out that that was a hit, then that of course led to all the movies that came after that. And then with Spike, he was standing on the shoulders of Mario Van Peebles and the other directors before him. And when he put out "She's
Mm-hmm.
Gotta Have It" in '86, that spawned, okay, we can tell our stories too, and it
Right.
can make money. Like I said, "She's Gotta Have
Mm-hmm.
It" was an indie hit, and then that later led to "School Days," which put EU on the map nationally with the butt, took Go Go from being a regional sound in the DMV, took it nationwide. And then, of course, the
Mm-hmm.
explosion of "Do the Right Thing" in '89. And then that later led the pipeline to John Singleton, the Hughes brothers, and the list goes on and all the great black directors that came ever since. And I mentioned Spike because when he went to graduate school at NYU, I believe he had told his story in several interviews that his grandmother saved up her social security checks to fund his way through film school. And
Mm-hmm.
with that, he put out a student film that is on YouTube. And looking
Mm-hmm.
at the liner notes for the credits, that he had his longtime collaborator in a lot of his movies are Ernest Dickinson. He was featured in the film doing the behind the scenes work. And
Mm-hmm.
Ang Lee, who is famous for, I believe, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and other films, was also a part of that project as well. And it's great to see, at least now, that we're feeling like we're seeing a second renaissance of how it was in the '90s, where our culture is being represented fully. on TV, in social media, in various forms of print. And then also we're seeing the younger generation who weren't born when a lot of these movies and shows were out
Hmm.
wanting to get that same experience. I mean, we have the A Different World reboot that's coming back on Netflix in September, and to see how the younger kids now are latching on to that and seeing how they're saying we can kill two birds in one stone, where we can get the new demographic who heard about this show from their parents and grandparents watching it on streaming, and then we can recapture those of us who grew up in real time when those shows were at its peak. So it's like, because of the advancements in technology and with media, that a lot of people can go and discover new shows that they haven't heard of, or rediscover shows that they fell in love with. And it's necessarily now where with media, you necessarily don't have to cater to one particular demo. You can pretty much just put it out, and you can find whoever your audience is and just go straight to them.
Right. Um, as far as like with the streaming services and everything now, it is a great thing. But I do miss the days of being able to go into a record store and get your music and everything. And now even as an artist, which a lot of artists are talking about now, just on the streaming services, um, we're starting to try to get back to actually having actual copies of our works made, so we can sell them ourselves, because it takes a lot of time to see some type of results or some type of profit when you're waiting on getting all these streams, which you gotta get a lot of streams to actually make something.
Mm.
So I myself and some other artists that I know, they also like are having physical copies made, like on wax and on CD, so they can sell copies of their work themselves. I think that's very important, to keep that going. And I wish they would bring record stores back like that.
Yeah,
Actually.
yeah, I agree, because when you're seeing a lot of Gen Zers, they're wanting to have that physical media where vinyl sales are outselling other forms of music media, and it's where you have that touch of going to a record store, getting whether it be a vinyl, CD, even
Hmm.
cassette,
Yeah.
and it taught you, at least for me in my standpoint, as a kid growing up in the 90s, it taught me how to be a better and more diverse music listener. Because when you
Hmm.
had that vinyl, you had that cassette or that CD, you had to listen to pretty much the whole thing, unless you wanted to really skip it and repeat it, but you end up
Right.
messing up the cassette tape, the vinyl, or the CD. And it also gave you that sense of community, where you were able to gather around with friends or whoever and have discussions about the album. And then another thing that it did too, if you went to the record store, if you didn't know what to get, you got in good with whoever was working at the store, and they could point you
Yeah.
to, hey, listen to this. Hey, I'll be sure to save this for you when it come in next week.
Hmm.
So you pretty much build that rapport, and you start to build your musical palette. Whereas, you know, back, well, now you can pretty much get catered to your own audience and not really listen to particularly different genres of music. Whereas prior to, you pretty much had to listen to whatever was playing on the radio, and top 40 in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s was very broad, where you could hear Whitney Houston 1 minute, and then it can go to
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses the next. So that's where you would get a lot of your musical diversity from radio, and then watching MTV, BT, other music video outlets that would play different genres
Hmm.
and not necessarily be regulated to, oh, we're gonna play just this. While that
Hmm.
was there, you still had the awareness to say, okay, even though this is not something I normally listen to, I can dig. And back to the artist point, it feels like we're going back to that era of DIY, do it yourself, where artists were selling their records out of the trunk, were setting up merch stands before the show,
Yeah.
after the show, and you would pretty much do the legwork. And then when labels saw, okay, he's moving this many units, he doesn't have a major
Mm-hmm.
backing him, and that's when majors would come knocking, and that's when you would have the
Right.
advantage because you could tell the label, look, I'm doing this without you. I just need you to push my product. Let's do a
Mm-hmm.
P&D. P&D that you don't know is press and distribution deal.
Okay.
Whereas you just press and distribute my stuff. You give me a cut or just pay me flat. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want to go out, just push the product, but you just give me that distribution because
Okay.
at least during the days of when record companies still ruled the roost, that there were certain companies that had a power play as far as we own the distribution. We
Mm-hmm.
have these things in place to where unless you're signed to ABCD records or EFG records, they own the distribution arm. They have independent promoters that can go to these stations and tell the PD or MD to say, hey, be sure to play this record by this artist. And maybe they'll slide a couple of things your way, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's illegal. But of course, we know some people still took that under the table and everything,
Yeah.
statutes and limitations and all that good stuff. But, it just feels that, now the barrier of entry is not as steep as it was pre-internet because you had that filter of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have a record label that's telling me, okay, this is what I should be listening to, this is what I should be going out to my store to go get. Whereas now, as an artist, you can just go direct to consumer, and you
Right.
could pretty much make a good living pretty much catering to your audience and
Mm-hmm.
touring, let's say, regionally as opposed to nationally, without having the pressure of, oh, I got to go towards this audience in order to
Mm-hmm.
maintain. And that when you're independent, you get to keep all the money yourself. You don't have to split it with nobody,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
you own the work. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you were to sign to a major label, you're gonna get that contract that's not really gonna be in your favor unless you prove first time out that, hey, they moved this many units first album. And depending on the label, if they're very artist friendly and champion the
Mm-hmm.
artist, they will want to renegotiate and give you better terms. But some, you still got to ride it out,
Right.
and you will ride out the contract, and hopefully you'll get favorable terms when it's time to renew. But it still feels where it feels like artists now have all the leverage, and it's almost like,
Mm-hmm.
why would I need a major for if I'm already building
Right.
that buzz on my own by going to my fan base? I have all the data that says this person likes my stuff. I have X amount of subscribers via all socials. I put out content when I want. I don't have to worry about you telling me I need to put out these records to market to so and so.
Right.
And you can pretty much have the freedom to do what you want without somebody from a label over your shoulder saying that, oh, we got to make sure we got to put this out as the lead single so that way we can get a maximum return on our investment
Mm-hmm.
because we invested this much money in you for development, for video, for press. Whereas now, like I said, artists can pretty much cut all that out and pretty much do it for less, and they can say to the labels, I got the gun now. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun.
Right. 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 I like having control over what I put out. Because I'm someone that's not going to do something that doesn't feel right to my spirit anyway. So I'm
Mm,
not going to like record any type of songs that I'm not really feeling anyway. Now, with everything that's going on, I can create the type of songs that I feel that I want, and I can put it out. It's easy to put it out now. The thing is getting the marketing behind you, and that's sometimes difficult. If you don't really have funds like that, because that costs to market a lot of times. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm focused, and I've been getting a lot of great feedback about my new single, which I'm very excited about. Because I really wanted to do a love song because I'm big on love music, love songs, and '90s R&B type stuff. But I know you're going to talk about that when you're ready to talk about it. But yeah, I'm very much on being in control over my own creativity and my destiny, not only as a singer, a recording artist, but also as an actor, whatever type of roles that I choose to play, or what I choose to write and put out there. What I put out there as a writer is very important to me. I'm not going to put just any and everything out there. I use my artistry to uplift the Black community, to uplift the Black collective. And I I'm not really into doing stereotypes. So I do movies and stuff that get us to think and to show us interacting with each other in a more positive way, because Hollywood likes to show images of Black people always at each other's throats, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you rarely get to see like a really a love connection between Black people unless it's in a sitcom. You don't really get to see like a drama with a strong Black family, or um, a Black couple like really loving each other. They don't have a bunch of drama going on, and
Mm-hmm.
and so that's very important to me. I always in my films I always show a component of Black family, Black friendships, and Black on Black love. That's very important to me because I see nowadays that actually Black relationships are under attack. And seeing you got Black men attacking Black women attacking Black men. You got Black men attacking other Black men, and Black women attacking other Black women. And the other races, they have problems within their own race, but they don't get online and put their issues out there for the whole world to see. Black people put everything out there for everybody to see and judge and give their input on. You know, and I personally get tired of seeing these attacks. Black people constantly attacking each other online all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it really bothers me.
Yeah,
Because what you want to say?
but yeah, I was gonna say that you were mentioning how other races they tend to do a better job at keeping their stuff in house,
Mm-hmm.
whereas us it's mainly more so we have to put our dirty laundry out there on Front Street for everybody to see and have an opinion on.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I see Black folks letting white folks stick their mouths in Black people's business, and they let them get away with it. I don't like that. You know, like for instance, I know Tyrese has his issues, but a few years back, he, there was something going on with like the custody of his daughter, I believe, right? And he got online and he was like really emotional, and he was crying about, the custody of his daughter, what was going on with his daughter. And one of those white comedians, Gary Owens or that other one, Rappaport, one of them bastards, they was up online making fun of Tyrese crying about his daughter. And I saw Black people egging this white man on, teasing a Black man about showing some emotion over his daughter. And I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that at all. That
Mm-hmm.
Black people were caping for white folks down on a Black man for showing some emotion about his child. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioning with, you like to be in control of narratives and protecting your work and not letting anybody tell you what to do with your art. And that brings me to mind of Mr. Prince Rogers Nelson and how
Mm-hmm.
he pretty much stood up to the industry where, when Warner Brothers signed him, they initially wanted Maurice White from Earth, Wind, and Fire to EP his album. Prince was like, no, take it. how it is, or you don't get me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, once they saw him in person, do it all. Like, I get it. And
Right.
he was very adamant on owning his stuff. He was adamant on doing the whole shopping online on the internet with your albums, putting it online before it became big. He put out the musicology album for free in the
Mm.
Morning Sun newspaper, I believe, over in England, and he was pretty much champion artist rights. And Michael Jackson was like that too,
Right.
where he was pretty much taking publishing that was screwed over by the pioneers, buying it back and reverting it
Mm-hmm.
to the original artists to make sure that they weren't going broke. Because as we know with the history of the industry, a lot of the older artists ended up being broke,
Yeah.
penniless, because of the bad deals that they signed, where they got that nice little Cadillac or maybe that advance money in the brown paper bag, but at the end of the day they ended up having their publishing getting taken away, then getting cheated on royalties. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully now with a lot of our older artists, because of the years where their works gets reverted back to them after so many years with the
Right.
labels owning them, they're at least able to get some money off of that. Now you mentioned streaming and how it's good for the artists, but monetarily it feels like industry rule number 4080 all over again. Whereas you can have over 1 million streams, but because of the money that's set, it's not equaling to what it should be. And that's why I think the industry and those that are in charge of making up the money percentages as far as how much should a stream be worth monetarily should go in the artist's favor, because they couldn't have foreseen that people would shift away from physical going to digital. And I think that most artists are starting to wise up now as to, okay, I need to make sure this is straight on this end. And so far, you have some artists that's pulled their entire
Mm-hmm.
catalogs off of
Yeah.
streaming, where the only way you can get it is physical. And then you have other artists, in order to gain back ownership of their recordings, going back to re record their older works to gain ownership. We've seen Taylor
Mm-hmm.
Swift do it, Ashanti, plenty of other artists are saying, I want to have ownership of my
Right.
stuff,
It's important.
and,
Yes.
and not have somebody from XYZ Records still getting money off an album that I did, let's say in '01,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not seeing any money from it, and I'm still having to go get tour money because I'm not able to eat off the back end off of the mechanics.
Right. That's why a lot of artists are starting to go back to physical copies. Um, I have a few friends that's going in that direction. There's artists, having actual, like I said earlier, having actual vinyl copies made and CDs made again. So, they want to have that control back in their hands where they can see more of a profit. Um, and more of it coming back to them directly versus a company or so forth or the streaming
Mm-hmm.
service.
Yeah, because like I mentioned earlier, with selling up a merch booth, let's say if you were to go to one of these major arenas, the major arenas is owned by, let's say, AG Live or Live Nation, and that if you're
Hmm.
selling merch at one of their spots, they gonna want to cut it at, and
Yeah.
then you got to pay them a fee to set up
Mhm.
shop. So it's pretty much almost like Vegas, where it's set for the house to win. You may make you a little bit of money, but
Right.
knowing the end, the house is going to get theirs.
Of course. They always got their hand in there, right?
Mm,
Always. Always.
mm,
I, it's been a journey. Going from being so shy and all that and going through some other stuff, and like I mentioned, going to this community college years ago where I took a dance class and Um, I took an acting class too. I really didn't learn anything from that person, but I already had, my ability. But I wanted to go to this school in New York. It was called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Um, Now, I had a letter of recommendation and all that, but my mom would not let me go. Not because she didn't believe in me, she believed in me. It's just that because I had led such a sheltered life, um, because because I was so timid and dealing with the fact that my biological father was abusive and all that kind of stuff, I was very shy and to myself, and I didn't really go out and socialize with people. I would
Mm-hmm.
go to school and come back home and stay in the house. So she felt like if I went off to New York, even if I had gotten into that school, she felt like New York would have
Swallowed
chewed
you
me up
up.
and spit me up. Yeah, so that's why she wouldn't let me go. And
Mm-hmm.
I thank her for that, actually. I thank her
Mm-hmm.
for that because that wouldn't have been, I don't think I would have fared well at that time in New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because New York, as you know, they say if you make it there, you can make it anywhere, but it's a totally different animal where if you're not mentally and emotionally prepped to deal with it, it'll give you that swift kick and you may not know what to do with yourself after that once you get a couple of cold hard rejections and how it's
Mhm.
pretty much dog eat dog.
Right. And even if I went up there and got some roles and did well at the school, you still got to watch out for other people around you, which at the time I was probably too trusting as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was a little naive back then, so that's another
Mm-hmm.
reason why she probably wouldn't let me go up there because I was too trusting. And there's
Mm-hmm.
some people that would like really probably try to destroy me out
Mm-hmm.
of whatever. If they saw me
Right.
like doing well, people get jealous when they see you doing well. So there probably
Mm-hmm.
be somebody up there maybe trying to destroy me or whatever. So
Right.
I think it's a good thing that she kept me from going there back then.
Yeah, because we heard a lot of stories about, black folks or other folks who made transitions from the South to the North or other parts of the country, such as the Midwest and the West Coast, that when they went to those particular regions, let's say coming from small town USA, they had to learn quick, like, oh, this
Hmm.
ain't small town. This is big
Right.
city. I got to keep my
Mhm.
head on a swivel, drink water, mind my business, and pretty much watch every
Yeah.
move because it's a different type of pace and a different type of mentality that you got to have when you live in one of these big cities.
Right. And I don't know. I think because I saw his name on your friends list. I have a friend um, by the name of Devon Howard. He's a
Mhm.
recording artist. I don't know if you know him or familiar with him. He has a lot of great work out there
Yeah,
on Howard. You know who he is?
yeah, Devon Howard. I had him on my podcast not too long ago. He was in the RCA recording group Me to You back in the
Yeah.
day with Stacy Lattisaw's brother and
Hmm.
another member of that group. Those two they went on to form Prophet Jones, and now he's putting out
Yeah.
solo material. Yes, of
A
course.
lot of great solo material. He's a very good friend of mine. He's we're brothers, basically. We call each other brothers because we met a long time ago. Myself and him, myself, Devon, and a girl, a sister by the name of Dina. We had a trio at one point. Like I guess like Shalimar, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we it probably would have went further, but if I'm not mistaken, the sister who was in the group, you know, she was dating this guy, and I think um she got in the family way and she moved away to Virginia, right? So that split that up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um and back in the late 90s, I think around the time when he got with me to you, um, I did record a song. It wasn't in a professional studio or anything like that, but I recorded this song that I wrote called Only One Love. Um, and I had it packaged up, by this place called Disc Makers. And I had like, was it 500 cassette singles? And it had like the regular version of the song, and it had like a acapella version on the other side. And I sold all of those copies on my own. That's another reason that makes me want to go back and have copies made. of my music so I could sell it on my own. Um,
Mm,
but that song, Only One Love, is a song that I plan to redo because I don't feel like that song ever got its just due. It's a really good love song called Only One Love that I wrote. That I want to record a whole album sometime by 20 early in 2027. I want to have a whole album out.
mm,
So,
mhm,
and that will be one of the songs on there. Definitely.
mm. Right. And then I want to touch back really quick. You mentioned in a lot of your film work, you show positivity and not going towards stereotypes where blacks are depicted in demeaning and degrading manners. And it just brought me back to kind of how influential Hollywood Shuffle by Robert Townsend was, to where he showed the struggles that black actors had then and some still do to this day, of when you're going on the casting couch and the audition circuit and saying we're looking for a certain type and feeling like you have to compromise yourself in order to get your foot into the door. And
Mhm.
he pretty much showed in that movie that, and how in the end you don't have to sell out in order to get ahead. And we see how Hollywood Shuffle became a huge hit. And just at the time, because with Eddie Murphy being white hot, Eddie was able to leverage his power and influence over Paramount in the industry to say, hey, you know I'm in. I'm gonna make sure we all eat, because him, Keenan Ivory Wayans, Robert Townsend, Arsenio, all of them were doing their thing at the same time, and
Mhm.
it wasn't to where one person was like, "I got mines, you got to get yours." No, if one win, we all win, and then we see what came out of that. With all the stuff Eddie did, Robert Townsend directing Raw for Eddie, Robert Townsend having Partners in Crime, Hollywood Shuffle, and Keenan Ivory Wayans with I'm Gonna Get You Sucker,
But
and then later morphed into doing A Living Color, which is one of the
mhm.
premier shows that helped put Fox on the map. And also it ended up changing the way the NFL does halftime shows.
Mhm. But I have a film that's it's not like Hollywood Shuffle, but sort of, but it's different. It's called The Eternal Extra, and it actually won a couple of awards in a film festival. The Eternal Extra came about because I'm outspoken, and I have someone that I know who's also an actor who is a member of SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and I had gotten an offer to perform in this play in California. And the person, people, I posted it on Facebook that I was going to be performing in this play in California. People came through and it was like, "Congratulations, Carltaise, go do your thing, go get him." This particular person didn't say anything on my post. I happened to go out one night and I ran into this person. And when he saw me, he was like, "Oh, I see you about to go to California." Um, but he didn't say anything on the post. "Oh, I see you about to go to California. Um, I'm not trying to tell you to dumb yourself down, but you might want to tone all that pro-black stuff down when you go out to California because it's a different beast out there." And he said he didn't want me to block my blessings. And as he was saying this to me, I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to tone down who I am to try to get a seat at a table controlled by white folks. Also, I was thinking to myself as he was saying this to me that at that time, he had been a member of SAG for like 14 years, but he was still waiting on them to give him a speaking role. He's gotten a lot of work over the years, which he should be very proud of. He has gotten a lot of work, but it's all been extra work. He's still waiting on them to give him an opportunity. I'm out here creating my own opportunities. I'm creating opportunities for myself as an actor and as well as for other black actors and actresses. So when he said this to me, I'm like thinking to myself, well, you telling me to tone myself down, but one of my films was just in a film festival a month ago prior to this conversation. So I have this film called Eternal Extra, which is about these two best friends who grew up together. And there's a flashback scene in the film where you see these two little boys playing with this toy truck, and the television is on, and the Oscars come on the television, and one of them jumps up and says, "Well, that's going to be me. That's going to be us up there one day, right?" So fast forward, later they're now in their they're now in their late 30s, right? And they don't feel like they've gotten to where they think they should be in their career. Um, One of the characters, he's feeling really down on himself. He's feeling like, when are they going to see me? When are they going to recognize my talent? His best friend is like, man, bump that, right? We can create our own opportunities. Okay. So, in addition to writing and directing this film, I was also in it. I chose to play the character that was the opposite of who I am. The character named Lante, who was like, bump this. Can we cuss on him?
Yes, you can.
The character Lante, who was like, bump this shit, we can create our own films. Is more like me in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But I chose not to play Lante. I chose to play the character who was feeling really down on himself and wanting for white folks to recognize his talent. Because that's not me. I'm not waiting on white folks to recognize my talent. I don't care what they think about me. Okay, if they like what I do, they like it. Great. But I'm not waiting on approval. So I chose to play the character that was the total opposite of me. And so in this film, there's like a little showdown between the two actors where he calls him out, you know, to like stand up for herself. It has a very powerful message in it. It was on a streaming service that actually the my co-star in my film, who played the best friend, he started a black streaming service called Stream DMV, which is now no longer in existence right now because he's been busy doing other stuff. But it was a great platform for black filmmakers, mainly black filmmakers in the Baltimore, D.C., Virginia area, Maryland, Virginia area, to put their work on and be seen. Um, but that's one of my films. I have two new films. One is called We Brothers. We Brothers is a film that mainly focuses on Black brotherhood. It shows a diverse Black brotherhood between six Black men. Two of the Black men, or three of them, are heterosexual. A couple of them are what I call same gender loving. I don't know if you've ever heard that term or not before, but I don't I don't knock anybody who uses those other terms, but I personally don't like using the terms gay or queer. I don't like those words.
Mm-hmm.
So same gender loving, or SGL for short, is a term that came from a Black man by the name of Dr. Cleo Monago. Okay. So in this film, you have this brotherhood between these Black men. Some are heterosexual, a couple of them are same gender loving, and one is bisexual. But they have a close brotherhood nonetheless. Also, it shows a brotherhood between black men from different parts of the diaspora. Because three of the characters were born here in the States. One of the characters was born in Ghana in Africa. Another character was born in the UK, and another one was born in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. So it shows a brotherhood between Black men from different parts of the world, and also the fact that things like sexual orientation shouldn't get in the way of Black brotherhood. It's about having respect for each other. And in this film, the brothers all look out for each other, and they all care about their community. Also, the two Black heterosexual characters are in strong relationships with Black women. Um, and they're Black women, not knocking anybody else, but they're Black women who you can clearly see are Black women. They're not racially ambiguous looking. You know, like you don't have to try to guess what they are. And I think it's very important to show strong Black love between Black men and Black women, and also show this relationship, which is not done in a stereotypical way. It shows a strong relationship between two black men, and it's not stereotypical at all. Because, like I said, I don't do stereotypes. Okay, so this film shows strong black brotherhood. It shows strong black loving relationships between black men and black women, and also between two black men. Um, but it focuses more on the brotherhood than anything. And then I have another film called Jumbled Thoughts, which I also recorded a title song to, called Jumbled Thoughts, which I sent to you early this morning, both of my songs. And Jumbled Thoughts, um, I started writing it, and then one of my friends named Kinga Chase, who we called each other creative besties, she took it and ran with it from there as far as the lyrics. I started the lyrics, I started writing the lyrics, and then she did the main bulk of it. And I sung the song, I did the verses, and we did harmony on the chorus together. And she has like a little feature solo, and then I end the song up with me. But Jumbled Thoughts is a film that addresses stuff that we're still dealing with now to this day. It deals with the racism in this society. Um, and it's about a conversation between these four black men who are friends. It's the premise is they all supposed to come together to take their sons to what's called a hood movie marathon, right? A hood movie marathon like the so-called hood classics, like Boys in the Hood and Juice and stuff like that. The character that I play in my film is named Rizzy. Something happens. Rizzy is first is excited about this hood movie marathon until something happens to change his mind. Rizzy has a goddaughter. His goddaughter is shot in one of those drive-bys. You know how, which has happened here in Baltimore before and in other places, where some people will go through the neighborhood shooting at somebody else and an innocent child gets hit. So in this film, that's what happens to the character of Rizzy's goddaughter. So that prompts him to have a conversation with his friends. It starts off with a conversation between him and his friend Joshua. Joshua is naive to what's still going on. He's like, that's all in the past. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Right. And he talking about how he got white friends and all this kind of stuff. Then you have the holy then thou church person who you know is basically saying that we need to bring all races together and all this and that and not focus on uniting our people. And then you have this other character who really don't really care about what's going on so much. He's just there for the movie marathon. But anyway, it's a very powerful film. And in this film, the name of a young brother who was murdered back in October of 2022 by the name of Rasheem Carter. He was 25 years old. He was murdered in 2022. I think it was in Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. It was in Missouri. It was one of the two. But he apparently had gotten into it with his white boss, had a verbal altercation, and he felt threatened after that verbal altercation. So he went to the police. He tried to get his car had broken down. He had a car, but it broke down. So he was trying to get somebody to give him a ride to the police station, which was far away from where he lived at. Nobody could give him a ride. So he basically walked there. They told him that they couldn't help him at the police station. After he left the police station, he discovered that he was being followed. He called his mom on the phone and told his mom that he was being followed by three truckloads of white men. And if anything happened to him, they probably did it. Well, I think she said she heard from her son one more time, like I got a text message from him. But long story short, she never saw her son again. Because some days later, or maybe longer than that, he was discovered. His body was discovered. He had been lynched, and his body had been dismembered. So his body was like spread all over different places. And when they found the skull, because they severed his head from his body, and when they found the skull, they found his penis. They cut off his penis too, which is something that racists are known to do when they were lynching our ancestors years ago, decades ago, and they're still doing it to this day. But they cut off his penis and put it in his mouth. And they're trying to say there's no foul play. How the hell can you say there's no foul play when somebody's body has been dismembered and all this other kind of stuff? You know that's a murder, but they try to cover up. Just like you have a lot of black people nowadays is being lynched still. Like last week, there was a young black woman who was found lynched in Florida. Who went? Well, it wasn't last week. It was Juneteenth weekend. There was a young black woman who was found hanging from a tree in Florida, who went to Florida from Michigan to celebrate Juneteenth. And she was found hanging from a tree, and they trying to say it was suicide. The same thing with Trey Reed, who was found hanging from a tree on the campus of the college that he went to in Mississippi last year in September, and they lied and said that that was a suicide. They've been doing that a lot, lynching black people, still hanging black people from trees today, and still getting away with it. So in this film, the name of Rasheem Carter is spoken, and his story is told in this film about what happened to him. It's very important to speak their names because this stuff is still happening. Like right now, what's going on right now with this new case, Nolan Wells. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's going on. He was just murdered last weekend. And there was another young brother who was 17 years old, who I just found out about earlier this morning. He was on a trip with his white coach, probably all white team members, because he went to a predominantly white school in Alabama where it was 93% white people at the school, only 2.4% black people, and the rest were Hispanics and other people. And they claimed that he accidentally drowned, right? And this happened the same exact day that Nolan Wells went missing. So I'm very outspoken about this stuff. And so those are my two new films, Jumbled Thoughts and We Brothers. I'm all about using my artistry to uplift our people and to empower our people.
Mm-hmm.
And with music, I like different types of music, right? I wanted to definitely like put out a love song. I don't know if you're ready to talk about that yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Good Morning Kiss. Good Morning Kiss, like the country way of saying morning. Um, I actually wrote that song probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And at first, when I like heard the melody in my head, I'm like, yeah, this sounds kind of strange. But then it grew on me, and I'm like, I got to do something with it. And I love music because we don't get a whole lot of love music anymore. Um, I wanted to put this song out because it also has like that '90s R&B feel to it, and it also has like a little hint of neo soul as well as R&B, and for lack of a better term, um, the great Nina Simone would probably cuss me out because she said jazz is a white person's term. she said is she said she calls it black classical music, what they call jazz, right? So with the piano sound in there, it's like a little jazz sound to it, or black
Mm-hmm.
classical, as Nina Simone would say. But I love the feel of this song. Um, I did an interview on my own podcast with some people there, but we had like a little listening gathering where we listened to my song as well as some other people's songs. And, there were people there who really liked it and said that it's one of those feel good songs that they could see themselves listening to in the morning or whatever. But I want to, you can.
Yeah, I like the record. It has that neo soul, that warmth where you can play it for your significant other, something that you can put on your hard bottoms and dance to, and it gives you just that warm feeling of being with that person that you love, and
Mhm,
just feeling good, and you know that everything's going to be all right. Now I want to touch back on the two films that you mentioned.
mhm.
Are they currently available to stream now? Are they still in post production?
No, they both have been completed, but right now I'm in the film festival cycle, trying to get them into film festivals.
Okay.
Um, I have submitted to a few film festivals. There's one film festival right now in particular that supposed to make their announcement soon, and I'm hoping that they get in. Um, I do eventually want to put them out there so they will be available to be seen. I just know that with my type of work, I got to be careful, right? Because certain streaming services might not respect my work because it is outspoken and it goes against the status quo. And a lot of times when you do something that goes against the status quo, they don't want it to be seen, right?
Mhm.
But I do plan to get it out there somehow for people to see. Once I go through the film festival cycle,
Okay.
I just want to
Okay.
try to get it into a few film festivals first.
Mhm.
Because when you enter your films in the film festivals, they don't like for the film to already be out there to the public. Because film festivals are like, well, why should we have your film in our film festival if it's already available for everybody to see? Right.
Mhm.
So I can't put it out there until after I'm done with the film festivals.
Okay, so pretty much film festivals are pretty much showcases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And the one thing, I appreciate about you is that you're very pro, I'm going to build a table instead of begging for a seat, which is what, like we mentioned Spike, we mentioned Robert Townsend, and of course we got to mention Tyler Perry with he pretty much shook the industry on his head with where he found the audience, built it, and then became this huge multimedia conglomerate to where he pretty much took a former military base, turned
Yeah.
it into Tyler Perry Studios, and
Mm-hmm.
gave the blueprint of this is how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, like I said, that's very admirable. And, I say kudos to Tyler and everything that he came through and got to that point. You know, I used to, well, at one point I thought that it's not the same year, but I thought our birthdays was the same day, but not the same year. Because my birthday is September the 14th. And I used to see his birthday printed as September the 14th, but it's really September 15th or something like that, 13th, whatever. So I say kudos to Tyler for everything that he's accomplished. And as I mentioned earlier, I found out maybe about 10 years ago about the official first Black filmmaker who stepped out on his own. His name was Oscar Micheaux. Um, he's somebody who I greatly admire. Oscar Micheaux, who he did it like way back in the early 1900s as a Black man who stepped out and had his own film production company. You know, which I greatly admire. And that's another thing that I admire about Melvin Van Peebles because he wanted to do his own films and he wasn't going to take no for an answer and he wasn't going to sit around and wait for Hollywood to give them an opportunity. He used his own resources to get his work done, what he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I admire that.
Right, right. And talking about Melvin Van Peebles and Oscar Micheaux and those who didn't wait for a seat, built the table. Also
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Don Cornelius and how he took what was originally a local Chicago show. It ran in Chicago, and then he said to himself, "Let me go to L.A. since where most of the labels are based, put
Mm-hmm.
Soul Train out there." But he ended up linking up with, he just passed away a couple of days ago, George Johnson of Johnson Hair Care Products. And
Okay.
they became the first major sponsors of Soul Train, and it was
Mm-hmm.
pushing positive Black narratives at a time where it wasn't a lot of positivity going on that was being seen in the media. In addition to Soul Train, a couple years prior to that, you had Ellis Hayslip in the show Soul, which was pretty much showing Black joy, and you had James Baldwin, Nikki
Yeah.
Giovanni, and the big musical acts of the day performing on that show. And then you have the writings and readings of the late Bell Hooks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, and it was really just a time where all these images, readings, music was coming out, and it was all about we're going to express ourselves and we're going to put ourselves in the light where we want to see ourselves,
Yeah.
and we're not going to have someone else tell our stories for us.
Hmm. It's very important that we control our own narrative, um, because our children are watching, and people think that entertainment is just entertainment. It's not just entertainment. It does influence people. You got this big thing going on right now about um, what India Ari said about that song "Spin That," which I personally have never listened to. Um, and when I hear about the song is about, I really don't want to hear it. But India Ari, she never said boycott the song. She basically said, be careful what you listen to, what you allow into your spirit. People
Mm-hmm.
think that it's just entertainment. It's not just entertainment. Then there's
Mm-hmm.
some people who will say that, well, no song or no movie has ever influenced them. Well, it's like this. I can say the same thing, but some people have stronger minds than others. Some people can watch a film or listen to a certain type of song and it not affect them. But there are
Mm-hmm.
other people who are very impressionable and who
Mm-hmm.
are influenced by
Mm-hmm.
music and film and television. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's and the reason and how that it does influence people. That's why Hollywood wants to control the black narrative so much. That's why Hollywood pushes the stereotypes in the black community so much. They don't want to show the positive stories. Okay? They don't want to show the positive stories. I mean, just like when rap music first came out, a lot of rap was positive before they broke out into the so-called gangster rap and having black people talk about killing each other and degrading black women and all that kind of stuff. You know, it that's why they did what they did. They saw the fact that the conscious rap was having a positive effect on the black community.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh no, we can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have that. So they shut that down with the so-called gangster rap, showing black people talking about killing each other, and throwing the N word around left and right on song, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I don't really like that either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I personally don't use the N word. The only time I really use it is like as an actor, if I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
play or something, where I have to say it as in the character. But in my own personal life, I don't really use that word like that.
Right, right.
It is in my film Jumbled Thoughts just to prove a point. I have it in there just to prove a point. Um, and we do talk about the use of the N word in that film, as we talk about a lot of things in that film, Jumbled Thoughts. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah. Now with Jumbled Thoughts and Good Morning Kiss, are both of those songs available on streaming services?
yes, they are. They're on all streaming platforms right now.
Okay.
Um, Good Morning Kiss was just released 3 weeks ago, and Jumbled Thoughts, the song was released on December 19th of 2024. Might as well say 2025 because it was almost 2025. But yeah, so they're both available right now.
All right, so you can pretty much check those songs out on all DSPs and pretty much get the feedback. We already talked about the two current films that you currently have that are in post production that's currently in the film festival circuit or getting into the film festival circuit. So we'll be looking for those to drop on streaming after that is all wrapped. And do you have any other projects that's currently available at the moment, or those are the ones that you just have going for right now?
As far as like my film, The Eternal Extra that I mentioned earlier, that was on a streaming service, I have to find the right place to get it to. I don't know if I want to put it on Tubi. I don't even know if Tubi would like my film on it. It's a little bit too intelligent to be on Tubi, but I may try to get it on Tubi. So I have The Eternal Extra. I also have a really short comedy called In the Eyes of, and my very first film, which was shot in 2009, um, called Speak It Real, which is about a family. Uh, I do want to get that out there at some point as well. I'm not sure exactly which streaming service it might be on. You know, some people say you people can start their own streaming services if they want to, but you know, I might look into that. You know,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely looking forward to your projects. Once through this interview, do you have any shout outs you want to give and plug your social media?
I definitely want to give a shout out again to my friend, my brother, Devon Howard, who's a recording artist as well. Like I said, me and him and his girl used to sing together years ago, and I had to audition for them. And if I'm not mistaken, the song that I sung for them was, I think it was "I'll Be There" by Michael Jackson. Of course, my voice was up there, but anyway, Devon Howard, my bro Johnny Baltimore. I think you also know him possibly. He's a rap hip hop artist, Johnny Baltimore. I want to give them shout outs. I want to give a shout out to my who we call each other creative besties, Miss Kenya Chase. Kenya Chase just um her first film has just been finished being edited. You know, I help with a lot of that. I'm also playing, she wrote, this is her first film. It's a family drama called Another Chance. And, you know, I play the lead role in her film, Another Chance, which has just been submitted to a film festival as well. So I want to give her a shout out about her film. And she also has a couple of songs out as well. She does a lot of inspirational stuff. Um, and she has like this rap inspirational song called, she also sings too, because she's on Jumbled Thoughts with me, but she has a song called I'll Be On My Way, which is really hot. So you may want to interview her, you know, about her new film and her songs as well. Um, I'll be happy to connect you to if you want to talk to Kenya, you know. Yeah, so my social media, I have quite a few, but I'm not going to give all of them. I have like 5 Instagram pages, but for my films and stuff. But my main Instagram page is Godtaise. That's Godtaise. If you type that in, it'll probably pop up. But it's Godtaise, um, Godtaise underscore actor underscore singer underscore writer. Um, Godtaise underscore actor underscore singer underscore writer. But if you type in Godtaise, the rest of it will probably pop up. And then I also have Carltaise Ransom Films on IG as well, which is Carltaise Ransom underscore films on Instagram. And of course on Facebook is Carltaise Ransom.
Okay. And you can catch this interview wherever you stream and also on youtube.com at youtube.com/beyond the album cover. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you to the one and only Mr. Carltaise Ransom for coming on the podcast. Carltaise, thank you so
Thank
very much
you.
for coming on, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
I'll be happy to, because I do plan on recording and getting a whole album out there, and I want to come back once I have that whole album together.
Bet you got a spot. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.